You have been praying, asking God for direction, waiting for something to change, but nothing has moved. And the longer you wait, the more confused you feel. You start wondering if God even hears you. You start questioning whether you missed something. But here is the truth that most people are not ready to hear. You are not stuck because God is silent. You are stuck because you are not doing what God already told you to do. That is the real conversation we need to have today. Not about hearing from God more clearly. Not about waiting longer or praying harder. But about the gap between what you already know and what you are actually doing. Because that gap is where most people live, and that gap is exactly what is keeping your life from moving forward. Let us be completely honest with each other right now. Most people do not lack direction. They lack execution. If you sit quietly for just a few minutes and ask yourself the real questions, you already know the answers. You know what you need to stop doing. You know what habits are draining your energy and pulling you away from purpose. You know what you need to start doing. You know what steps have been sitting on your heart for months, maybe even years. You know what God has been pressing on your spirit, that quiet but persistent nudge that keeps showing up no matter how many times you try to ignore it. The problem is not that you do not know. The problem is that instead of moving on what you know, you keep going back to prayer. And before you misunderstand, prayer is not the problem. But the reason behind the prayer matters. Because some people are not going back to prayer for clarity. They are going back to prayer for comfort. They are using the act of seeking God as a way to avoid the discomfort of actually obeying God. And that is a very different thing. Prayer is one of the most powerful tools available to a person of faith. It connects you to God. It aligns your heart. It brings peace in the middle of chaos. But prayer is not a replacement for obedience. And some of you, if you are being truly honest, are using prayer to delay action. You are saying things like, I am waiting on God. You are saying, I am seeking confirmation. You are telling yourself and others that you just want to make sure before you move. But deep down, if you strip away all the spiritual language, the truth is simpler than that. God already spoke. He already gave you the instruction. He already made it clear. And now you are going back and asking him to repeat himself, not because you did not hear, but because hearing again feels safer than actually moving. You are using the language of faith to justify the behavior of fear. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the more distance grows between where you are and where God is calling you to be. Here is something that nobody tells you plainly enough. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. It does not matter how spiritual your reason for waiting sounds. It does not matter how many prayer journals you have filled or how many services you have attended. If God told you to move and you have not moved, you are in disobedience. And disobedience has consequences, not always dramatic ones, but quiet, consistent ones. Every single day that you delay, you stay in the same place. Every day you delay, the frustration inside you grows heavier. Every day you delay, you start to doubt God, not because God failed you, but because you never gave his instruction a chance to work. The doubt is not a sign that God is not real or that his word is not true. The doubt is the natural result of sitting still when you were told to walk. You cannot experience the outcome of obedience without first choosing to obey. You keep asking why nothing is working. You keep wondering why your situation looks the same as it did 6 months ago, 1 year ago, maybe even longer. And the answer is not that God has forgotten you. The answer is that you are trying to pray your way out of something that requires discipline. God gave you instruction. He gave you a clear enough picture of what needs to happen. But you want the results without taking the action. You want the breakthrough without the obedience. You want the open door without walking toward it. And it simply does not work that way. God is not going to override your free will to force you into your purpose. He will speak. He will guide. He will confirm. But he will not move your feet for you. That part is yours. And until you accept that, the cycle continues. Same prayers, same frustration, same place. Progress does not come from more prayer alone. It does not come from more thinking, more planning, more waiting for the perfect moment, or more confirmation. Those things have their place, but they are not what unlocks movement. What actually unlocks progress is obedience. It is movement. It is execution on what you already know. The moment you take a real step toward what God already told you, something shifts. Not always in a dramatic, visible way at first, but internally something aligns. You stop feeling the weight of avoidance. You stop carrying the quiet guilt of knowing and not doing, and practically, doors begin to open that could not open while you were standing still. Because some blessings are only accessible in motion. Some answers only come after you have already started walking. God honors the step. He meets you in the movement, but you have to take the first one. A lot of people have been taught, either directly or indirectly, to separate faith and discipline. They treat them like two different categories. Faith is spiritual, discipline is practical. But that separation is the mistake. Discipline is not the opposite of faith. Discipline is how your faith shows up in real life. It is the physical evidence that you actually believe what you say you believe. When you wake up early to do the work God called you to, that is faith in action. When you say no to the distraction that keeps pulling you off course, that is obedience lived out. When you keep moving forward, even when you do not feel ready, even when the path is not completely clear, even when nobody around you understands what you are doing, that is what trust in God actually looks like in your daily life. Discipline is doing what is right when it is hard. It is moving when you do not feel motivated. It is acting without needing perfect clarity first. That is not just good character. That is obedience. And obedience is the language that activates the promises of God over your life. Faith is not just hearing God. Anyone can hear. Faith is moving when He speaks. It is closing the gap between the word you received and the life you are actually living. And until you do that, until you stop waiting for a feeling and start walking in what you already know, you will stay exactly where you are. Not because God is withholding from you, not because your time has not come, but because the version of you that is needed for the next level is built in the act of obedience, not in the act of waiting. So the question is not whether God has spoken. The question is whether you are going to move. If you are serious about discipline, obedience, and real growth, follow this channel. And be honest in the comments. What has God already told you to do that you are still avoiding?